Hello and welcome to the Safety Brief. I'm your host, Elizabeth, and today we're switching things up a little bit. We have a special guest, Robert Boles, the founder and CEO of BLOKWORX, with us to dive deeper into how BLOKWORX is leading the charge and redefining cybersecurity. In today's interview, we'll explore how BLOKWORX transformed the way we approach cybersecurity, driven by culture. We'll also discuss the impactful GoodWorks initiatives and how they reflect our commitment to making a positive difference beyond just cybersecurity. So first off, Rob, thank you so much for joining us today. We're excited to finally have you on the Safety Brief so our listeners and viewers can get to know you and the story behind BLOKWORX.
That's quite the intro. I mean, you got the cool music and very smooth. I mean, you guys are just really knocking it out of the park here. Thanks for having me.
Of course, like I said, we're super excited to have you on today. So to kick things off, Rob, can you tell us a little bit about the early days of BLOKWORX and what really inspired you to start the company?
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting story, right? I had grown up in a small family business. My dad had a TV appliance technology satellite store. And when I left home, went in the Marine Corps, ultimately landed in a corporate environment. And I was, at the time, a SME, I guess, subject matter expert, but it was really an SE. And that S rotated sales, security, systems. But it really was a great experience in that being a specialist at an organization, I was in this 250,000 employee entity, but my team was like 35 people. We were super specialized. It was like the SEALs inside of the Navy. And we had a ton of success over about 5 or 6 years doing advanced internet protocol, wide area network, data center, all managed security services. And then Mr. Whitaker and his infinite wisdom acquired AT&T and they let our team go. And so BLOKWORX was really born out of being laid off, right? And having that realization that, wow, someday I'm going to have a family. Someday I'm going to have even more people that depend on me. And I needed to have more control over my own destiny. And so I spent a little bit more time at the mothership working, but really having grown up in a small family business and now faced with the uncertainty of where do you go when you're laid off? It made sense. And so BLOKWORX was created. We actually had a buddy who was a CFO of a financial firm. And right around that same time, they acquired another company. And he gave me a call. And he's like, Bowles, we just acquired this company that's like 4 times bigger than us. We need to connect the networks. We have no idea how to do it. Is this something you can help us with? And at that time, I had no idea. I was a technical resource, right? But I didn't know how to run a business yet. And so I said, yeah. I said, yes, we'll take care of it. And we did. And that was 2006. Here we are in 2024. And, I think the real story is if you look back just a short bit, in 2019, we were 4 people. And here we are in 2024, approaching 30. And, there's definitely a story of resiliency in there, right? So.
Oh, it's really crazy how that started. It really shows you that everything happens for a reason. So that's really awesome that you took something that could have been bad and made it into something amazing, like BLOKWORX. So another challenge that many companies face, even like outside of cybersecurity in all fields, is making the shift from reactive to proactive strategies. It's a game changer. So how did you and the team at BLOKWORX decide that this was the direction to take?
Yeah, great question. There's multiple philosophies in this world, right? There's no shortage of diversity of thought and everything. And, for me, let me give a really crazy analogy. So when I first left home, and then came back into the working world after going in the Corps and back to reserve status and everything. I moved to the Bay Area and was always active, mountain biking, everything. And I was introduced to chiropractic. Why is chiropractic even coming up on a cyber call? Well, the whole idea of chiropractic, and some folks believe in it and some folks don't, but for me, it resonated, right? Keep my body aligned, keep my systems running optimally. And as a consequence of that, or maybe a benefit's a better term, I've led a pretty healthy life. And so that mentality of a prevention centric, let's get to things before they're issues, kind of permeated into my whole life. And so back to when I was working at my previous employer before starting BLOKWORX, another one of the things I really figured out early on is my clients, the people who were depending on us, they were entrusting us with an element of their business that they weren't fully qualified for. They didn't really know how to handle. And ultimately freed them up to do what they would rather be doing, right? I've taken some feedback over the years. The only piece of hate mail I ever got was for saying this, but when does ransomware or any of these things happen? It happens when it's least convenient for you. It is what it is. And so BLOKWORX, and really my philosophy around this prevention centric thing, is we want to get to partners. We want to get to clients. We want to get ultimately to people before they're in a state of distress, before they're in a place where they can't do anything but, God forbid, pay the ransom or deal with the fallout of an event. And so that preventative mindset has been around, for me, really since day one in my technology space. Why? Really for that exact reason. No one thinks clearly once they're in a ransomware event, at least on the client side, right? We do, because we live it, we're in it every day. But these folks who aren't maybe technology savvy, they're just not set up for it. So, how do we keep them out of harm's way became the question. So that's really where prevention originated from. We've been blessed because of how we architect that our IR experience, and we're good at it, but it's not our existing clients. It's the clients that come to us in that state that we help pull out of the fire and restore back to a healthy state, right? So kind of a long-winded way of getting to it, but really, when you look at all this, it kind of, in a lot of ways, between the Marine Corps and chiropractic and being proactive about life in general, that's where the prevention stuff comes from.
Yeah, it truly is amazing. It's something that I just kind of never forgot when I first looked up BLOKWORX, was that you guys were on the prevention side of cybersecurity, and being new into the cybersecurity field, I didn't even know it was a thing. So another thing is, when people hear the word prevention, like I said, it can sometimes sound like those hand sanitizer bottles claiming to kill 99.9% of germs. So can you walk us through how AI, deep learning, and human validation come together in our proactive strategies and services, making prevention possible? And Matt, you might even have some insight on this one as well.
Oh, I never have any insight. I just smile and look pretty.
We're lucky to have your beauty here for us. So. Oh, good. That's a huge question. Prevention, AI. I think for us, one of the maturity indicators of any business is when you really start to stamp your processes right. And we have the blueprint for prevention that kind of became one of our early things, which is complete visibility, reduce the attack surface, stop known threats, prevent unknown threats, and automation with human validation. And that's been part of us since, almost inception. And then in 2017, when, again, I've been blessed with running into different things at different times. And I've met Deep Instinct right after they came out of stealth mode at a client. And I saw the technology, and, you know, when you really look at our industry, and we've been stuck in a state of reaction for a long time, and you can architect defense in depth, zero trust, you can do all these things, but really it only takes one error to leave a door open. And so where the AI and the deep instinct and really deep learning really came in and made such a difference is Palo was already doing such an amazing job at the edge and the network. But we didn't really have an endpoint solution that was scalable for the SMB. So when we were able to get DI or Deep Instinct to work with us to build out the multi-tenancy, that solved that. And so how does AI and deep learning make a difference? Well, most of the stuff we're seeing in the industry is going to be machine learning. What does that mean? Well, it means every time the machine makes a mistake, we correct it, we teach it a little bit more, and it gets a little bit better. So there's still that human interaction to every element of it on some scale. And the static analysis, right? It's looking at signatures, hashes, known things. Well, where deep learning really changed it, and I know Fulmer can expand on this beyond even where I'm at, but where deep learning came in is it really started to look at intent, right? What is the intent here? And that's difficult to measure. But when you train the brain, the DI brain, the way we do, you're literally throwing millions and millions and millions of files of both, good and less good, or, malicious, we'll say, files at it, it gets really good at being able to determine and distinguish between them. And so that's where some of our peers have struggled in these events, where a sanctioned app becomes weaponized and suddenly, it's just raining havoc in these environments. We had an RMM, I think it was in 2021, one of the big industry RMMs had a little hiccup, and they had clients who experienced a ton of pain, both in ransomware as well as just downtime, because they had to shut the thing down. They had to take it offline because of the vulnerability. We had zero issues because our solution was able to determine when a previously sanctioned app was now behaving maliciously and proactively block that. So I heard Matt come back in. You want to add something to that, buddy?
Absolutely. Why not? So, one of the major differences that we're seeing within the industry are buzzwords. Everybody gravitates towards buzzwords. Everybody thinks that they need to have buzzwords or align themselves with it in order for people to want their product. The problem that we're seeing with those buzzwords are you have to actually be able to leverage the buzzwords that you're talking about. When you're going out there and you're saying, oh, we have the most advanced AI that's available, I shouldn't be able to bypass you within the first 30 seconds of testing your program. It just doesn't work. So, as you touched on, there's different subsets of AI. What people tout as AI, machine learning, is technically AI. You are artificially creating an intelligence to try and better your prevention capabilities. The problem with doing machine learning is you're only giving it certain segments that it can look at. You're giving it basically certain little bits and pieces and aligning them into buckets. And if it doesn't fall into those buckets, then it just walks straight on through. With deep learning, it's a little bit different. You can send the entire data set. You don't have to, you still have to organize and transform the data before you send it through and do the actual learning of the model, the training of the model. But you have the capability of sending the complete file. So it can look at everything and understand the context of what a malicious file has inside it. That's why when you mentioned that lovely attack that we had by a certain vendor that will remain unnamed, we didn't have to worry about it. And at the time, I was actually at Deep Instinct. So a lot of the questions that were coming in were coming from BLOKWORX, and I was answering them. And, it was fun watching that because we were smart enough to understand the normal payloads that were out there, the legitimate upgrades that the unnamed vendor was sending, were not being flagged. The malicious ones that people were going to update your product name here.com and downloading because they thought, oh, it's a fix, when in fact, I mean, that's the number one thing that's going to happen is a fake website gets spun up and a malicious payload gets put out there. It was smart enough to prevent those payloads from writing to the machine in the first place, and as such, kept them from being hijacked and moved to a malicious instance. So that's where the power actually came in. And that was the proof that everybody needed. It wasn't just talk. And, I know that you're very much against people just running their mouth for the sake of running their mouths. So being able to back that up is a huge thing. And I've encountered that a number of times where I say, yeah, you know what? Our solution will handle the unknown. And I get people that come in and say, well, it's not possible. There's no program that can do that. Well, there is. We've been using it for 5+ years. And while everybody else is getting screwed by, what I like to call the Dollar General of threat actors, we're over here just, eating lobster and caviar and sipping on champagne while everybody else is freaking out.
Well, we just saw it, right? We just, I don't know. I mean, time in a post-COVID world is a interesting construct, but I don't know if it was earlier this year or late last year when the other big RMM player had their remote access tool compromised, and we had partners. And to your point, right, there was a lot of malicious sites spun up with fake updates, and how you even end up on one of those is a little beyond me if you're paying attention. But we had partners who were trying to update their app, and DI kept killing it, in zero time, as we say. And it always starts out the same. Frustration. Hey, I need to update this because I need to use it. Well, are you wondering why it's being blocked? Have you considered that? Like that maybe it's being blocked for a reason. And then when we pull it apart and able to show the partner, hey, this actually isn't a sanctioned update you're trying to pull here, and here's why we're killing it, then it immediately flips from frustration to gratitude, right? Or at least appreciation of some sort. So
Yeah, when I look at it, I'd much rather have something prevented rather than you telling me, hey, by the way, your house is on fire. You might want to go grab a fire extinguisher. So it may, set back a little bit of things here and there, but it's definitely worth it at the end of the day. I'm glad that you brought up buzzwords, Matt, because one of the recent buzzwords is culture these days, but it is clearly a key factor in what makes BLOKWORX stand out. So, how does our culture influence the way that we approach cybersecurity as a whole?
we could do an entire hour just on culture. So let me try to just provide a few high level bullet points that we'll break apart. But I think first and foremost, BLOKWORX. So even though this company was founded in 2006, this is, for lack of a better term, the third time I built it. And, the first time I built it and I had people and, but we weren't all on the same page. Everybody didn't see the vision. So we kind of grew to a certain point, and then, that kind of spun back down. And then the second time got a little bit better. I talked about being an engineer, creating a business, and we grew again. And then again, kind of spun back down. Let's just say everybody wasn't on the same page. So the third time, I'll never forget, I did a Tony Robbins event in Vegas, and it was incredible. It was life-changing, and it was like an MBA crashed into 4 days. But one of the key takeaways I had was this, realization that everything was going to start with really strong core values. And so I sat there in the hotel I'll never forget. I was in the Vidara. I stay there because it's a non-smoking, non-gaming property, and I sat in the lobby, and I just really, for about 2 hours, just focused and got really clear on our core values, and everything from that point forward became about those values and reflecting those values, and how does that show up, right? So that's where we started the team interview. You know, Tarango, it was Mike Tarango and I were we were the business at that point. It was just two of us. And then we added Reed. And then after Reed, when we had three people, is where that group interview that we do, that culture fit interview, kind of grew out of. And then that's been a consistent for us ever since. And so we hire, we review everything we do, you know, and even we talk about it constantly, our core values. And so a lot of different things came out of that. One, most importantly, character, right? Our people are clearly different. We've got incredible diversity on our team, which I absolutely love, but we're all rowing in the same direction. And this purpose driven, you know, endeavor, on the cyber side shows up in how we take care of our clients, but the ways that we've found to expand, you know, certain challenges out there, like the industry will say there's no talent available, right? We can't find people. And I hear that, and I kind of got to call bullshit. You know, it's not that you can't find people. There's plenty of people out there who are really awesome, capable, whatever, but you got to be willing to invest. And so one of the first things that we kind of said, hey, we're not going to buy into this narrative of there's no talent. We're going to go find good people. We're going to train them. We're going to train them our way so we don't have to undo any bad habits. And, you know, like Elizabeth, you're a shining example of that. You know, I know you had been in a cyber program and joined us, and just like from day one have been amazing. And like, here we are on this podcast, you know, which is super cool. And hopefully people are getting value out of it. I know they are when you guys are talking about threats and stuff, but this idea of let's not buy into there's no talent. Let's just go do it. Let's be actionable. And so that's one example. Another one is and most people probably aren't aware, but if you think about it, we're very environmentally conscious without pounding our chest that we're environmentally conscious. If you look at the swag that we do at shows and stuff, you know, none of the stuff we're giving away is going to go straight to landfill. You know, there's a lot of conversations around carbon credits and yada, 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 but that's all talk to me. What are your actions? If your actions don't align with what you're advocating, you know, is that really what you intend? And so we've done things like silly pints, which are created from recycled material. They're like these friendly cups, hot, cold, whatever. We've done that. We source all of our shirts. You know, we actually pay attention to where they're sourced to make sure they're ethically sourced, just to, you know, for lack of a better term, be the change you want to see, is what it really comes down to. And, you know, and even now it just happens that these last 5 weeks, I've been, you know, at conferences and everything. And I've become acutely aware of just how much waste occurs from coffee cups, you know, and then I just quick search, and like, it's some crazy number, like 1 million coffee cups per minute are consumed in the US. And, you know, and all of that just goes to waste. And so the next thing we're going to be doing for BLOKWORX swag is little travel mugs, you know, little BLOKWORX branded travel mugs, because I carried one the last 3 weeks of the thing. And every time I went up to a coffee kiosk or whatever, oh, you have your own cup? Awesome. Like 15 cents off or whatever. And it's not the cost savings that matters. It's hey, it's one less piece of landfill going in. And so, you know, culture, the do good work, you know, and gosh, hearing me say it, probably one of the most fulfilling things that is reflected in that do good work is our partnership with Flanders Fields. right, with Ben Owen and those Robert Coleman, those guys. When the U.S. pulled out of Afghanistan, it was less than elegant. And, our team, really our culture is so intertwined with service and a lot of military folks that, and I've talked about this before, but I will never forget the weight that I felt on the team, right? When we had our morning call, I think the day after that kind of all started to go south, and we've got members of our team who spent a ton of time in the desert. They've missed births of children, they've missed weddings, they've missed funerals, they've missed all this stuff, serving all this time out there. And suddenly the way it wound down, I think a lot of service people, particularly those who have participated in this conflict, were like, what, I gave up all this stuff because I believed in something, and we just walked away from it. And so, kind of long-winded, but what it really resulted in is like, hey, how can we turn this into something positive? How can we find that silver lining, right? You see a theme: the layoff, create a business, have a failure, find a silver lining. And we did that. We found this organization, Flanders Fields. We immediately made a donation that day, because it's like action, right? Let's not just talk about it. Let's do it. Action. And what we didn't anticipate, or I didn't anticipate, was within 8 hours of us contributing, I got this text back from Ben of this little rabbit truck, this like little box truck, Hyundai with a box truck. And he's like, hey, Rob, just want to say thank you. Because of your guys' donation, we were able to get this family out of harm's way that was actively being hunted by the Taliban. We were able to get them out of the country, and they're safe. And, thank you. And it gave me goosebumps. I was like, holy cow. Like, because here we are in the States, not that we don't have our own challenges, but knowing that we were able to make a small difference, that's what our culture as a business grew stronger because of that. Because it was bigger, right? So does that make sense?
No, it totally does. And it does feel amazing to know that you're making a difference, even when it comes to the little things, like preventing ransomware and keeping our clients safe. So I totally understand that, and it's something that's amazing that our company does, which is GoodWorks, which we'll ask a couple questions about that towards the end of the safety brief. But something I'll never forget was my cultural fit interview. When I joined BLOKWORX, I had never experienced anything like it. I had no idea what to expect, but it ended up turning out amazing, because it even made my first day on the team less nerve-wracking, since I had already met like a large portion of the team, and we already had that comfortability with each other. So as a leader, how do you maintain and foster the purpose-driven culture at BLOKWORX, especially as we continue to grow?
That's a great question. I've long believed that our biggest challenge will be maintaining the integrity of the culture of the team. And I think that's where these, the hiring process, I think we do an amazing job at that. The group interview, culture fit, I think we do an amazing job. I would have no idea how many Swifties we had on the team if it weren't for that question about, what's on your playlist right now. And then we got the metalheads. We had a few of the team. We went and saw Metallica a few years ago. So we full spectrum on the music thing. But, how do you maintain the culture? I think it has to stay top of mind, and you continue to find new and creative ways to maintain it, right? And to not just do things, but really engage the organization, right? We keep it top of mind. We keep it aware. I know next year, one of our goals is we want to do some kind of memorial ruck in San Diego. It's still conceptual, but being able to bring the team in, have an event, do an activity together. Give folks, because we have so much remote people, give people an opportunity to rub shoulders in person, because it's kind of wild, right? We see each other on these screens. We build in water cooler time, if you will, but still you can't replace that personal time. So, but how do we maintain the culture? By keeping it top of mind and living it, is what it really comes down to.
May I interject for a moment?
Absolutely.
Sure thing.
So one of the things that I can say when it comes to culture is a lot of companies talk about having it. Not many of them have the balls to actually back it up. It's very difficult. You want to appear as though you are doing all of the right things. You want to appear as though you are this amazing environment. If the truth was out there, I'm sure half the people wouldn't have gone and worked at Apple or Google or Microsoft or anything else, knowing the environments and how they actually work. Cool. You had, a cafeteria that would cook you whatever you wanted any time of day. You had sleep pods. You had, gaming areas. But you also had one of the most toxic cultures that ever existed in any sort of a technical area. Now, long ago, it was really hard to suss that out because you would have to find word of mouth, and most people were terrified to say anything. Well, now there's things like Glassdoor, where you can actually go and you can look at a company and you can see reviews from people who work there, which are anonymized for their safety. Now, the reason I say that is because if you look at, say, us, for example, the reviews are positive because we practice what we preach. We do not want to have an environment that would be classified as toxic. Everybody talks about, we have a very open dialogue with all of our people. Do you? Do you really? Or do you pretend to do that and then, end up going after them because they said something that you didn't like? We don't do that. We specifically, one of our values is candor. You cannot operate with candor if you are being a vindictive little jerk on the back end. That's not candor. That's just being an idiot. There's a difference. So my suggestion, if anybody is looking for places that they want to, inquire about employment, before you actually submit your application to them, go research them on places like Glassdoor. Look what the actual employees are telling you. Now, mind you, some are going to be slightly vindictive because maybe they were underperforming and they were let go for valid reasons. The natural response when something like that happens is anger. It's going through the entire, grieving process. You lost your job. I mean, it's akin to losing a loved one or a friend, not as severe, obviously, but you still go through the stages of grief. So you have to look and see. Some of those might be slightly vindictive. But if you look in there and you see a trend with a ton of these employees or former employees saying, well, the culture is not really the best thing, but the pay is fantastic, then you know that those people are there because they're getting a paycheck. They're not there because they are bought into what the company is doing, and they're not there because they resonate with the mission of that company. Somebody offered to pay them more, I guarantee you they'd be saying sayonara and they'd be out the door. But they probably don't have those offers available. So they put up with it, and then they just try to let people know, hey, if you're not like me, where you're purely looking for the money, maybe look somewhere else. And that's a huge thing. That's why I'm here. I worked with BLOKWORX for a number of years and was not actually employed at BLOKWORX, but I knew the culture. I knew everybody that was here. So, when a chance came about for me to make a move, I already knew exactly where I wanted to go and why. And that's the other important thing. Rob, you've brought this up a few times, the why.
Yeah.
Ask the why. If they can't tell you the why, then you don't need to be there.
And you know, good culture truly makes a difference just on day-to-day work. It really gives you the motivation to be there. You know, I don't think I've ever had a job where it felt like a hobby. It felt like something that like I want to do every day. Like it really does not feel like work when I'm doing work for BLOKWORX, and I think that's what really has helped me excel. Like you said, Rob, you know, I wasn't a normal hire into the cybersecurity industry, and I've even pinged my way around to different seats, you know, jack of all trades over here. But you know, the culture at BLOKWORX has allowed me to grow, and has allowed me to provide the help at my full capacity that I can provide for BLOKWORX. So truly grateful for the culture here, truly.
Yeah, it's super. You know, everybody measures wealth differently, and you know, we're in business for profit, but the fulfillment that is recognized from, you know, we're very work-life balance. We strive for that, which in our industry, because of how demanding it is, you know, presents challenges. But you know, I think the team and the culture, and we talked about how DI measures intent. Well, you know, our intent is always to support family, support, you know, the why, protecting small businesses and mid businesses, whatever, but really protecting businesses from cybercrime and financial loss, right? And, you know, it's funny, I think about it, and the majority of our growth came through the COVID window. And when COVID first hit, and you think about culture, you know, and the reference to action, I will never forget when everything first locked down, and our team, and I think we were 6 or 7, maybe 8, I don't recall exactly, but we were like, all right, we're not just going to sit here and do nothing through this. And we got really aggressive in-house of you know, housekeeping. But one of the big things was the branding. We did the branding, and that's where everything we have now kind of came out of. And the branding isn't so significant, other than it was kind of like shedding our skin from the old ways to what we currently are, and where this real, it's a funny correlation, but it's really where a lot of the intention and the purpose was solidified. You know, I will never forget Dana Leadholm, who is a dear friend and kind of helped us. She was with us for a minute through that process. She's like, your logo has to, or your imagery and your logo, it has to elicit emotion. And all of our previous stuff didn't do that. But now when you look at the stuff we do, and you can, I mean, the way the brand has evolved, and for me personally, knowing how that connects to the culture and the people, it's just so incredible to see it. And there's going to come a time, and I don't know when, but there will come a time where an insurance company or somebody who's really tied to outcome in the context of, yeah, we really just don't want to have to deal with ransomware, is going to find us, and this thing's going to turn into a rocket ship. And all that foundational work that's been here, and how we do stuff, and the culture and the people, it's all coming together, and it's pretty cool. So,
well, thank you for that. So another thing is we always like to share some practical advice in every episode of the Safety Brief. So for organizations looking to adopt a proactive or prevention-centric cybersecurity stance and culture, what tips would you offer based on our experience?
That's a good one.
That's a great question. Well, let's throw a fable out first, because here's what I've seen in my time. Budget is always an issue, right? Because it is what it is. Budget's always an issue. I think if you try to go straight to prevention, it almost seems surreal. It's people can't get their head around it yet that it's even possible. So that's that. But a common scenario, and I've seen this time and time again, is business will maybe cut a few corners in what they should do because it's like, I can't afford it, or profit's more important, whatever the reason is. That doesn't matter, but they'll cut the corner regardless. And then they get hit and they have the ransomware event. And then suddenly, where they had no budget before, now they've got 10x the budget that they're just throwing at the problem without a clear strategy. And they end up ultimately being so wasteful in their spend because they don't really piece it together in a strategic, stitched way that creates a fabric of protection versus, holy cow, we never want to deal with that again. Money, 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 money. And then they spend and end up having tools like, I just learned this at a conference, that some city will just say purchased Palo Alto Networks, and it's been sitting in the closet for 3 years because they can't implement it. And so somebody checked the box, hey, we made this investment in this thing, but never implemented it, and I don't know how that all came about. I'm just like literally learning about it, but it's a great example of where someone did make the investment, but didn't follow through. It wasn't complete. There wasn't a strategy and a focus. And I think what we do really helps solve that. So if I was listening today and I was like, well, what could I do? I think one of the first things is, if you're an MSP and you have questions, reach out, because we're always willing to help. And we have peers. There's no shortage of providers in the industry who are competent and can make a difference. But if you're a business, then the question's a little different. Then you reach out to a managed service provider or someone like that, because you don't go to a mechanic for surgery. You need to get the ace in the place that can help you. If you're just an individual, first off, don't click on anything in any email or text. Those are two ridiculously high risk areas. But there's a lot of low level stuff you can do. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Fulmer?
One of the biggest things that I would say is I see a lot of people saying, oh, well, I'll think about it when it matures further. Okay. Well, when it matures further, it's also going to be costing exponentially more. So right now, there are solutions that can help keep you safe. They are affordable. As this grows and matures, you're going to run into a situation that I like to call the McAfee situation.
Yeah.
I worked there for far too long and got to actually see how the sales process worked. If you needed 2 products, you had to buy 10 products to get those 2 products. You now have 8 products that are sitting on a shelf that you never have any intention of using, but you're paying for it because you wanted these 2 products. Also, the average incident, when it does occur, spawns change. Well, I hate to be the one to break it to you guys. You know how long it takes to actually strip a solution out of an environment and replace it with a properly tuned, properly vetted solution? On average, it's going to take you 3 years if you're an enterprise. Another thing that I learned while I was there, because during the renewal process, the customers wouldn't be happy, and the response that I usually heard from the salespeople was, who cares? It'll take them longer to remove us from their environment than the contract they're renewing in the first place. So they're going to renew because they don't have the time to do anything else. So you're going to get yourself into a position where you're now reliant on technology that's subpar with people that don't care. And then what happens? You end up getting hit with ransomware anyways? I mean, that doesn't seem like a good situation or a good solution to me. So if you're thinking about it, Less thinking, more acting. You can think all you want, or you can have conversations. Conversations are free. They don't cost you anything. Also, as Rob mentioned, there are people out there that want to help you genuinely. There are providers. If you are a company that needs to go to an MSP, they will not try and bundle 8 million things together that you don't need. They will help build packages tailored around what you need for your environment to keep you safe. And that's what you're looking for. If you're an MSP that's looking for an MSSP that has the capability to do just that and is using the killer app that, from our testing, that I'm not going to spoil the reveal, but from our testing, quite literally humiliated every other solution on the market, come to us. We will help you. We have that capability to build a package around what you need. There's ways that you can do it, but the common theme is people wait and then they regret that wait. Or they will have conversations with those that are in charge, and those that are in charge will say, well, hey, my third cousin removed 5 times. Cletus works at this company. He can get us a deal. Okay, great. Does the saving money offset how much you're going to spend when you get hit with an attack? Does it offset the damage to your brand? You have to think about that. I was always told that you get what you pay for. In security, it's doubly true. You can go get the cheapest offering out there and get locked into a 3-year, 5-year deal or whatever. Or you can go somewhere that isn't going to lock you into something like that, but give you much better in the form of prevention. Keep you safe.
The dime.
Exactly.
Spend
you
the
spend
dime,
a little
save
bit
the
more
pennies.
and you're going to be in a better place.
Yeah, I think another important thing too is making sure that you know more about the tools that you're purchasing, which is something that, we're making big steps towards, which is our partner portal, making sure that even though we handle and do most of the heavy lifting, that our partners truly understand the tools that are in their tool belt.
Look at the material that's available for products that you're questioning or wanting to potentially leverage. When you have a meeting with those vendors, ask them questions that aren't in that information and see what they come back with. One really fun one to ask them is, when's the last time this product was validated with a third party for efficacy? Guarantee you they are going to try and dodge that question with the most intensity that you will ever see, because most of these programs are not validated. I hate to say this, but when's the last time you saw CrowdStrike, Trellix, McAfee, SentinelOne? When's the last time you saw any of these guys touting that they had a third-party entity willingly try and break their solutions? You want to know the reason why they don't? Because even when they say that they 100% will prevent an object, it still gets straight through. Spoiler from our testing.
Yeah, our testing really was insightful. And CrowdStrike's been in the news of late for all the wrong reasons. But let's be honest, each of those entities played a role, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got CrowdStrike, they did their part. Microsoft, they did their part, and even Delta Airlines. If they just as a mature organization, and I know this because I know how we handle this, right? How if you're just blindly pushing updates to your entire install base, our process where we have our small little pool where we test, and then we go to the next ring and we test. And so by the time we do the big push, we know with a near absolute certainty that we're not going to push an update that's going to break, I don't know, was it 800,000 blue screens or 1 million devices, 2 million, whatever it was. Never should have happened. But all that finger pointing, ultimately who suffered? The travelers, the people stuck in the airport and the folks who were just trying to do what they wanted to do. And so it's a great reflection, because for us as a business, we weigh everything against security, reliability, and a positive user experience. So everything we do is weighed against those three tenets. And, the question was posed, if we're out there and you're trying to be more preventative or protection oriented on your business, you should give us a call. We've got no cost proof of concept. We now have this documentation we're about to reveal how our solutions head to head perform against industry leaders. And we've got, 17 years as an organization of delivering these services of maturity and process. And, I remember in 2007, 2008, the economy was going into kind of a downturn, but I remember thinking like, wow, how do I build a process library? And now here, looking back at it, it's not an overnight thing. And the work's never done, but that reflection on how south things can go, how fast, because of what happened with that CrowdStrike update, that's all avoidable if you're working with a partner who's committed to your success. So
I totally agree. We're going a little over time here, but to close things off, beyond our work in cybersecurity, BLOKWORX is also well known for making differences in other areas through our GoodWorks initiative, which you kind of spoke on a little bit previously, Rob. So can you share more about these initiatives and why they're truly important to you, and maybe even how it got started?
Yeah, we talked about core values. One of our core values, which has come up here, is embrace candor. And another one is do good work. Very simple. There's a whole story behind it, but do good work. And when we took that globally, instead of just as the coming in every day, and we started, because we've done a lot. We've contributed to Keep Tahoe Blue. We had a team event in Plano a couple years ago, and the restaurant we were at was a farm to table, and they were trying to raise money to replace their plow or something. So we bought the plow for them, right? Because it was this program that was supporting healthy eating for different people who may have, food insecurity or whatever it's called. And so we're opportunistic in our application of, if we have an opportunity to do good, we do. But we're very consistent with the Flanders Fields and the Operation Underground Rescue. And it's just the alignment of values, right? So, and we'll continue to do so. I think we contribute about 1% of top line revenue to this cause. And candidly, it's one of the most rewarding elements of the business is that making a difference. So
Thank you for that, Rob. I do want to say, if you want to learn more about the BLOKWORX GoodWork initiatives, feel free to go to blockworks.com/goodworks, and you can see a couple of the charities that we donate to, along with our core values. And you can even go to those websites and make donations yourself as well. Spread the GoodWorks initiative a little bit more. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Rob, thank you again so much for joining us on this episode of the Safety Brief. We truly appreciate you taking the time to share more about yourself and the journey of BLOKWORX. And to our listeners and viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. We hope to see you on the next episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to share it with your network and join us next time for more insights and updates on the latest in cybersecurity. Until then, stay frosty.